Well, hey, Dave Melenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you again this week. As I do, I love to start with this question. And this one, I gotta say, even I have doubts on this, okay? Because I looked at it and I'm like, this is too good to be true. So I want to start you with a question. And the question is, are you interested in achieving rapid, unrealistic growth while increasing time freedom? And I'm like, that is an oxymoron. There's no way that this is accurate. So I'm like, that's it. I'm going to find the guy that said this and I'm going to have him on this show. So I'm honored to be hanging out with Joseph Rolshagen. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing really good, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to jump into this topic. As in case you didn't know, I want you to prove me wrong because I love this and I think this is going to be a great, lively topic. You're the founder and CEO of a company called IFGT Coaching and Consulting. So let's just start out with what does IFGT Coaching and Consulting consist of these days?
Okay, before I answer that, what I gotta
Yeah.
tell you is like I've had a desire within me to inspire, motivate, and lead people to live better lives, business growth, things like that, since I was 22 years old. And it
Okay.
took me until I was in my mid 40s to actually step out. So the only name that really made sense was the IFGT, which stands for It's Frickin' Go Time. It's time to quit playing small, time to quit living mediocre. It's time to really step out off that cliff.
That's awesome. It's freaking go time. There you go. That's awesome. So you know now as you're listening where this is headed, okay? So if you don't want to go anywhere, if you're happy where you are, then probably jump off and go listen to another podcast. But again, this is it's a really interesting topic. So I appreciate again Joseph jumping on today. And as long as you brought that up, let's start back to early for you because our listeners love to hear about the stories of us as started in corporate America, transitioned into the entrepreneur world, because there's a lot of them listening right now around the globe that want that, but they don't know how to do it. So kind of rewind that tape for us all the way back to when you were 22. What you brought that up. So what happened for you at 22?
You know, okay, jump right into it. So I've always wanted to do something with my life that's impacting other people's lives. That's been really important to me. And
Okay.
I got started I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, so I was around the auto mecca. So it made sense that I get into corporate America and follow a pathway there and everything else and stuff. And I started doing that. And I started out really early in sales. And I also tried starting multiple other businesses, whether it's a lawn cutting, whether it was I'm from Detroit, so I had a company, Detroit Construction Company. I've had
Okay.
different organizations I've tried, and plus I was working full time, and I had a family, and things like that. So you know how things like that work out. And with every failure I had, I thought, man, that's like somehow I didn't grow up on the right side of the tracks, or something's defective, or something's wrong that I can't
Sure.
do that. So I
Yeah.
started leaning into the corporate America, into sales, and man, I struggled for a long time, Dave. Like I worked my hump off trying to build territories, and I heard things like top performers, top producers, and it's like, man, that's where I want to be, and
Sure, sure.
I built it up to traveling 3,000 to 5,000 miles every week trying to build territories to get minimal results
Yeah,
in what I was doing and stuff. And I couldn't figure it out.
yeah,
And yet I seen other people who were just growing, and I thought maybe they grew up with the silver spoon, or they, what I mean, like things like that and stuff, and that wasn't available to me. And I couldn't figure out why, and kept struggling with it to the point of like thinking, man, this isn't for me. I really didn't want to be in corporate America,
sure.
but I was conditioned that, a man gets a job, supports a family, and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy some time in retirement. And I
Right.
bought into that hook, line, sinker, and everybody else in my family, neighborhood, community went corporate America route and stuff like that. So that was the programming I had, within
Yeah.
the right way to live, and maybe do something as a hobby where I could make some money. But it got to a point where I just kind of gave up on the business thing altogether and stuff. And then so I'm in corporate and I'm doing this stuff and I can't figure out why I can't get results out of what I was doing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I started out from.
Wow. Well, so and it's interesting. You bring up a word programming, which again, I don't want to get weird on it, but I think there's a lot of people that are really programmed, Joseph, to just do what you said. Hey, work 50 weeks a year, for those 2 weeks of somewhere vacation, and then you get on vacation and there's too many other people that did the same thing. So you're irritated on all that. There's just like this never ending stream of work. And like you said, man, 3 to 5,000 miles a week, that's crazy to think that you were running that hard and still not having results, which is kind of interesting because most people, let's just be real, we think the harder we work, the more that we're going to make, right?
We're
And that's really
programmed.
not accurate.
I'm going to say that
Yep.
a lot. We're programmed to believe that.
Yep.
We're
Absolutely.
programming. When you brought that up in the beginning here about grilling me, I love this because I've been wanting to do this and I haven't found this connection. So I'm really open to that, Dave. But we are programmed. We have a conscious mind, right? We talk about that. And all the works I do, I've been a guinea pig for all the assistance I help other people with today. I've gone through it myself, but
Sure.
and so we have the conscious mind of what we're focused on. What we want is in that conscious mind. The knowing of what we want is in there. But then we have this subconscious mind, which we know absorbs whatever is in the conscious mind. But also within that subconscious mind, there's what I call a motherboard that hosts all of our programming, our paradigms, our patterns, our habits, our experiences. And it doesn't even have to be an experience that happens to you directly in your life.
Yeah.
If somebody
Yep.
you consider of authority or of importance that tells you a story of them, like, yeah, I started a business one time and I failed and it cost me millions of dollars and blah, 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 blah. Then we build that into that network there. And the subconscious mind is what triggers our brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So it
Wow.
really is we really are based on our programming.
Sure. Yep. And that's a really, again, this isn't a weird word. Don't wig out if you're listening. But I want to ask you, so pointed question for you, Joseph. Can you recall the first time that you actually challenged that programming that was in your brain? Do you recall where it was like, there's got to be, there's got to be more. I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing it anymore. Do you recall that spot in your
Yeah.
career?
Yeah, in my mid 20s. Now it took a while for me to make, to make the gains and stuff like that. But in my mid 20s, I remember that an opportunity came to me, and it was a great opportunity. And I was all excited and pumped up and stoked and everything else. And all of a sudden, the other thing that programming does is that's the voice we hear in our head that
Yep.
tells us, well, who do you think you are? Who this? And I recognized it was telling me I didn't deserve this opportunity because I didn't work hard enough for it. So I
Oh,
didn't deserve it.
sure.
And I fought against that, fought against that. And honestly, Dave, at that time, it won. But it winning
Yeah.
changed the course of my life and the
That's
depths
great.
that I went into the studies with.
That's awesome. Because just let's be real, most kids, I'm going to call them kids because they are, most kids in their early to mid 20s, there's not, success isn't like paramount for them. Ease, maybe money, maybe the outcome of success is paramount, but the actual success itself. And again, whether it's, your family, your friends, anybody in your subdivision, they're pretty much all doing the same thing on that. So you just kind of think, well, this is just how this works. So it failed. So you were approached by it, you saw it, but you didn't grasp onto it. How long was it after that before you actually were able to try it and it worked for you?
Yeah, I started stepping into it, and all of it, like I said, programming, but it really is all of our programming that does that. Even things like the people I talked to today, I did not want to be in corporate America. I thought that I had like a mind, like an entrepreneurial type of mind, things like that and
Yeah,
stuff. But I couldn't break from it because it felt like that's where I was supposed to be.
right.
So I was one of those people that complained all the time about what I did and didn't like it and everything else, but I wouldn't do anything to change it. And then
Yeah,
later on, I tried to break away from corporate America and I wouldn't let myself do that.
sure.
And that's when I thought, okay, then I got
Wow.
to change something here. I can't
Sure.
live like this in this misery. And there was a short while that I'd used alcohol and things like that to cope with that life and stuff.
Sure.
And then I started going, I don't care what this says to me anymore. As I started understanding the total mindset a little more, how they work independently and interdependently. I'm going to start fighting it. I'm just going to
Yeah,
start fighting it just for the sake of fighting it because I can't stand living this way.
sure. Wow. Well, and it's so funny. I don't know if you struggle with this, Joseph, but I've been in business pretty much my whole life. Since my mid 20s, I've been owning my own company. And I'm 60 now. And it's still on a Friday afternoon when it's 85 degrees out in the middle of summer, and I jump on my Harley and 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. There's still that voice going, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? What are you doing? You should be working." And it's just like, whoa, wait a minute here, you know? It's
Yeah.
crazy. So do you still struggle with that voice for you, or have you been able to just totally get that thing out of your brain?
Now only because in sales, as all this stuff started changing and implementing, all of a sudden I started shooting up from not even being in the middle of the pack in sales to
Yeah,
landing contracts, year-over-year contracts of 18 million, 20 million. One contract, the highest I've ever been awarded, is a 5-year, year-over-year, $25 million contract. And
nice.
over and landing that took a $50 million organization to $75 million. And that was like
Wow.
that's when like all the stuff started coming and
Sure.
stuff. And so like
Yep.
every Monday now, because I do a lot of things over the weekend with support and volunteer and things like that. So every Monday is my fun day. Like I don't
Okay.
work on Mondays,
Okay.
and I
And how
take
does
that.
that
But every
does
once in
that
a while
mess
I
with
get
your
that.
mind? Does that
Huh?
mess with your mind? Does that mess with you at all?
Every once in a while it will, but I'm like you. I'll jump on my Harley and take off. I'll go
Yeah.
trout fishing. I've always wanted to live in the mountains, which I do, or I'll go to Chattanooga and go hang gliding. And
Yeah.
you
Oh my
jump off of a
gosh.
2,000-foot mountaintop, and your alignment of your mind automatically comes into a little greater focus.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I want that. I mean, that's how it is for me. By the time I'm at the bottom of my driveway on my bike, and we live out in the country, so 5 minutes and I'm in farm field, corn and cows, everything's gone, right? It's all
Yeah,
gone. There's nothing, no
yeah,
stress is left. So I think first great point for today for anyone listening is find that outlet, whatever that is for you. Because if you're stuck in corporate America and you're regretting it and you're not engaged and then you're looking for that 2 week relief, there's got to be other ways around that. So I hope that
absolutely,
you at least
absolutely.
take that piece. So I want to kind of understand this. So I started at the beginning saying that we can achieve rapid growth is one thing. Rapid unrealistic growth, that's something completely different. Okay? Now you couple that with increasing time freedom. It's like that just in my mind as I was preparing and reading that, I'm like that's like doesn't make sense, you know. And so not that what you're saying is false, it's that it's a blind spot for me that I need to get educated on. So fill me in on that, Joseph, and fill the
Yeah,
listener in because we're intrigued on how to get growth yet time freedom, because those seem like they're
absolutely.
in total opposition of each other.
Yeah. So what happens? And again, all the works I do is focused on total mindset. Okay. So when you look at that programming and things like that, we're taught so often, Dave, that if you want something in life, you got to take massive actions and exhaustive efforts, and you got to be willing to trade off your life to get it. And we buy into that, and so that becomes our truth because it gets built into that network. But that's not true. And most people going about it that way they end up settling for where they get because they never get that to that height of what their true desire is. So
Sure.
when I over 100 clients over the past decade now, when I work with somebody and they're at I have a client who was at $7.5 million is a 13-year high, and all they wanted to do was their objective was to get to $10 million. And so I helped them with stretching that and things like that. We got to 12 within 12 calendar months. They went from $7.5 million and shot over $22 million in revenue. They've
Wow.
been maintaining that now for the last 6 or 7 years. And it was the only year of that person's adult life that they took 5 weeks of vacation while we did that, while that growth was happening. So when
Wow.
I say unrealistic for going from 7.5 to $22 million in a year, that's pretty unrealistic to what our programming
Sure.
is, right? Like that's
Yep. Yep.
unheard of. And a lot of people will say that's BS. And I go, well,
Yeah.
I'll give you a name and number to talk to about it and stuff. And I have many more. I have people who went from, $3,200 a month and are now doing $26,000 to $30,000 a month. I have one of my clients who was working a job, had a business, and he was I mean, it was almost like a hobby, his business, because he's stealing time to put into it. And he went from maybe a grand a week. He's now doing over $40,000 a week. And we've worked
Oh,
together for a little over a year now that he and I
yeah,
work together because he expanded where he wanted, and then now he's going up to the next level. But I mean, it's just over and over and over and over with these stories. A gentleman who had a wholesale company for years doing $300,000 a year and leaning on the line of credit to cover that gap between costs and expenses is now doing $3 million a year, and now we're working together to go to 5 million. So it's possible, and every one of those people in doing so have found greater balance, because when we start identifying and shifting that programming that's telling us we need massive actions, exhaustive efforts, all that stuff, and we start
sure,
shifting that, all of a sudden we can start opening up to opportunities that we don't even realize we're blocking right now. When
sure.
we One of the first things I do with somebody coming out of corporate or something like that is I got to get them to shift down a little bit and the amount of activities trying to make things happen. And as they do so, we start opening up to these opportunities showing up. We overhear something that's right in line with what we're looking for. We just happen to cross paths with somebody, and it's somebody we want to talk to about expansion or things like
Sure.
that.
Wow. So for people that don't know, because you've been referring to this total mindset, and I think I don't want to blow by that because a lot of people think that, I'm going to get rich because of somebody coming to me, or, I don't really, I'm on the defense rather than the offense. And I
Mhm.
want to put somebody in the offense in this situation, helping them understand what the total mindset is. So when you say, Joseph, total mindset, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, great example. I'll use a little analogy here with my hands, but we have the conscious mind, right? And the conscious mind is what we focus on. So
Okay.
it's what we read, who we hang out with, whatever we put our focus on is what's in the conscious mind. But also in our conscious excuse me, mind, Dave, is the knowing of what we want. Our goals, objectives, all those things come from the conscious mind.
Okay.
So we have to get that into alignment with what we really want. If I'm watching, I use the analogy all the time, but if I'm watching, negative news all the time, but I want a positive life, I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to experience that. I have to somehow shift. So we got to do some works on the conscious, but then the subconscious, which absorbs the conscious mind, programs it into that motherboard of our patterns, paradigms, experiences, our habits, all that stuff is in there. And then that's a voice we hear in our head, but that subconscious is what triggers our brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So somebody who's watching negativity all the time, and then they're gonna that because of that connection and the workings of the subconscious, they're gonna trigger brain waves for negativity, not positivity. So we shift the conscious, and then we start reprogramming, start identifying, and that's what the program I've developed, Some Team Method, is really good at doing in a very, very quick, short amount of time. Is we
Sure.
identify what those patterns, paradigms are, and all those things that are working against us, so we can then shift that and put different things, more empowering, more potential expanding programming in its place. And as we do, instantly you start seeing a incline in the results.
Sure. Wow, that's awesome. I think it was it Henry Ford that said whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Was that him that said that?
It was absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I
One.
and I've been really thinking about that for myself a lot. Just because we choose, and this is where again it's super easy to take the hands off. Let's blame the government, let's blame the weather, let's blame the competition, let's blame the customer. It's super easy to push that blame on other people. But I like what he said in that I have control over this. So when a thought comes in, to my mind, I get to make the decision. Do I want to, let that thing enter in? I can't do this. I'll never do this. I could never make $100,000 a month or $100,000 a year, whatever your threshold, is for you.
Yes.
We do that. So if I'm understanding what you're saying is that's kind of the enemy in this respect, where that's what we have to deal with is that first spot is kind of dealing with those thoughts. Is that kind of where we start?
It is, yeah, that is where we start. And yeah, and it's we go through so much of our life kind of unconscious, because we just keep following that programming, those patterns, paradigms, or belief systems, all that stuff. We just keep following that and we don't ever question it, you know? And that's why it's so hard for somebody that grows up in an environment where it is corporate America is the way, have a job with a
Yep.
paycheck, things like that, security. We all know there's no security anymore in that. We have more security in
Right.
starting our own business, you
Right.
know? And so, but we hear those things and we follow those things and we're not even aware we're following them. And that's why people are going around miserable about being in corporate or having jobs and stuff when they really have a passion to do something else, but they're
Yeah.
stuck in that.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we start doing other things so we can cope with living that way. And I've done that,
Yeah.
you know, and
Wow.
and so breaking out of that mode, though, when we do, it's not just for us that we're breaking out, it's for every person we know, it's for our children, it's for our, you know, whoever that gives people hope in that we start
Sure.
building up, like that first jump off of a 2,000-foot mountaintop with a hang glider.
Wow, that's great. We're going to take a quick break and we come back. I'm going to unpack what you call the SMT method,
Yeah.
because I think that's going to be really helpful for the listener. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm honored to be hanging out with the founder and CEO at IFGT Coaching and Consulting, Joseph. I got to get it right, Drolshagen.
Perfect.
I had it right, and then he messed me up. So I was gonna say it my way, but hey, we gotta say it his way. It's his dang name. So so fill us in because I love where we're headed with this. I love that the mindset, something that at least I don't like the victim mentality where it all happens to me. I feel like there's two types of people. You know, my dad used to say there's three types of people. There are people that watch things happen, there's people that make things happen, and then there's people that don't know what's happening, right? And so we want to be able to be making things happen in our life. Now, there's always a caveat that please don't quit your job tomorrow if you have a ton of people and a ton of responsibilities and mortgages and all that without a really effective plan. So that's the little warning on the box, right? Because I don't want to have you calling me or Joseph saying, "Hey, guess what? I quit my job. Now what do I do?" You know, as we are trying to feed your family. So please use wisdom in this. But let's unpack this SMT method. I'd love to have you teach our listeners, Joseph, exactly what this is.
Yeah, and I also want to get some tools where people can start applying to see the results change and stuff like that. So the SMT method stands for subconscious mindset training. And like I said, we work on the conscious mind as well and stuff, but it's really that subconscious and it's really that program that the whole thing focuses on. Because when we shift the programming, excuse me, we open up potential. So it's going in there and it's figuring it out, like, you know, what the current programming is. And really, if we start living a little more consciously and asking ourselves questions like, why do I continue to go to this job? Aside from the paycheck, supporting a family and stuff like that, but what is it going on inside of me that's locking me here? Because we're never locked other than through our thinking. So we started asking that question and going beyond the thing. I got bills to pay, I got mouths to feed, you know, and things like that and stuff. Yeah, that's all of us, you know. But why am I choosing to do it? Why am I doing it this way? If there's
Mhm.
other avenues. Now, the very first thing I look for in anybody, whether I can help them or not, Dave, is do
Mhm.
they have an open mind? Somebody that
Sure.
says that this is all BS, there's no way you can experience those results and open up freedom of time and all that stuff. They're right. Like the
Yeah.
Henry Ford quote you so well said, you know, they're absolutely right. So
Yep.
what I look for is somebody that goes, man, I want to believe it. I just haven't experienced it, or I'm just tired of this place, or I, you know,
Yep.
so badly want to get that other side. That's somebody I can help.
Wow, that's great. Well, it's safe to say, Joseph, the ones that are closed-minded, they already turned this off. So we're only listening to the people in this on this planet that want this. And I
Yeah.
just, before you continue, I want to really kind of hone in on something that he said and ask yourself this question: could there be more? You know, just is there an inkling, a small little percentage that there could be more? That hopefully will get you to continue to listen to what Joseph's saying, because if you think there's something more than this 50 weeks of work in corporate America, and again, you don't have to quit your job tomorrow. Please hear what we're saying. Okay. But I want you to unpack that for people because people freak out. I'll just, you know what? I'll fall on the sword on this one, Joseph. When you're starting to talk about subconscious, I'm like, okay, I got customers I got to take care of. I got a team I got to take care of. I got rent to pay. I got, right? I don't have time for this subconscious stuff. This sounds too spooky, too weird for me. So you probably get that a lot. So I'm just saying what a lot of people are thinking right now. How do you like dispel that? Because that subconscious can be a pretty freaky and scary spot.
It is, and a lot of us know parts of it, but with all the studies I've done, knowing the intricate workings of it and stuff like that, it makes more clarity. But not everybody follows that pathway and stuff. So
Right.
one of the ways I help people start understanding it a little better is if you got clear on what you anybody listen to this, if you get clear on what you want, we spend so much of our life focusing on what's happening that we don't want. We don't even look at that other side. So many people I talk to and I say, "What do you want out of life?" And they go, "I don't know. I can't stand this anymore." But they don't know what they want. So put a little
Sure.
bit of time into getting some clarity on what it is you really want. And then a really good question that I ask people is like the client that wanted to go to $10 million. I told you I quickly briefed over it, but I stretched her to get to 12,500,000.
Sure.
And what I did there is I said, okay, can you see getting to $10 million? We started building the clarity around that, right? Can you see getting to 10? Yeah, I can see that. I can, kind of see it. I don't know exactly how the heck it's going to happen, but I can see, getting there. Okay. And then I
Sure.
built her up to the 12.5, which was stretched that sum. And then at that
Hmm.
point, she said, I have no freaking idea how I'm going to do that. But I got her seeing it as a possibility. And then I asked her this question: if you didn't think it was impossible, what would it look like? What would it look like to live a life at 12, bringing in $12,500,000, the $500,000 revenue every year? What would that look
Sure.
like? And that started gearing things up to where all of a sudden and what we're doing in essence is we are increasing our potential because we start seeing it a little more. And that'll cause us to identify the stuff in that programming that's pulling us away from it, going, who do you think you are? Or, I remember so and so started a business and they failed. I'm too afraid that, I'm not going to do that. And it starts bringing up those things there. Now, as far as shifting those things, there's pathways that the entire program is set up to identify and shift those so that we can start experiencing successes. And one of the things to do is, and this is another thing, we don't celebrate our successes because we put so much focus on the squeaky wheel, right? Squeaky wheel gets the grease. So we're always focused on that. And I've helped companies in bankruptcy get back into profitability by quit focusing on your greasy wheels being, the problems, and start using the greasy wheel as what's going good,
Yeah.
what's going well right now. And we start elevating that. And all of a sudden we're seeing one thing and we see another, and all of a sudden it starts growing upon itself with that direction there. You
Wow.
talked about people in the job and stuff like that. One of the things I tell my clients who are working and they have a business is we're going to get the business up and scaled. We're going to, up and going and everything. We're going to do all the stuff we got to do there with all that.
Sure.
And then we are going to quickly start scaling that to where you no longer have time to go to your job. And in exchange for that, you're going to have replaced that income and more with the scaling we do.
Wow. Well, and that's got to be freaky for people because I know for myself, Joseph, in my last company, we hit the 10 million in annual sales mark. And then I was trying to train myself out of a job and it worked. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can sell. They don't need me anymore. And we sold and everything worked out. So, but that's got to be really for people that are used to this because in the little bit of research that I've done on our brain is basically here to protect us. That's why I can't say, hey, pick up the pen and stick yourself in the eye with it because your brain's like, no, we're not going to do that. The problem is sometimes your brain doesn't know the difference between the good fear and bad fear because like the taking a risk is like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Is there a lot of risk involved in growing a company from X 5 million to 10 million or whatever the numbers are in our brain? Is there a lot of risk involved?
There's a lot more willingness involved than there is risk. I mean, the risk is if you're going from 10 to 30 million dollars, let's say, and you
Yeah.
end up around 20 million or 18 million, was that a risk?
Yeah.
You still grew.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's things like that.
Yeah.
And the
No,
other thing
absolutely.
that's really, really important within the SMT method is it's geared to start getting people successes right from day one.
Okay.
So as we start expand, as we start getting successes in moving that way, it becomes easier. It helps
Yeah.
us to go through that fear
Sure.
easier
Gotcha.
and quicker.
Okay.
So then we get more successes and it just builds upon itself.
That's great. Well, and that's where, because one of my thoughts was I'm a black and white thinker. So I think about if I have a trucking company and I'm at 10 million and I want to go to 30 million, I got to buy 30 trucks. Well, if it, the old Field of Dreams thought, if you build it, they will come. I'm assuming I don't know. Well, I shouldn't even assume. Let me ask you, if that's the case, is the suggestion to buy all those trucks, or do you buy one and then buy another? I mean, is it like 0 to 100, or is it 0 to 10 and then 10 to 20?
See, now
You're kind of
that's the
building it
kind
that
of
way.
fear that people would just get stumped with and not be able to go through, me included. I
Yeah.
have to do things in somewhat of a strategic way. So
Okay.
as we start growing and as we start looking at that, then we say, okay, you want to go to 30 million, you're at 10. Okay, so when do you need to bring in another truck? And we start identifying those points of when you need to bring in, when you need to hire.
Gotcha.
Because the first thing
Sure.
people do after they start scaling is they need to build a team. But instead of
Yeah.
bringing the whole team in right away, we can do that in a manner that says, okay, now this is needed. There's revenue coming in for it. Let's add this and let's, and so
Yeah.
there is a little bit of that. Like one of the things I tell people is it's you got to be willing to be uncomfortable. You
Yep.
do to grow. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable because you're gonna be at a point where it's like, okay, now we're gonna scale. Now we're kind of loaded up, overloaded with work amongst who's there, and until we add that other person. So we want to add them, but we want to add the right person. We don't want to just
Yep.
hire to
Sure.
fill a spot. So there
Right.
is a little bit of that balance in that whole thing. But
Yeah.
I'm telling you, when it starts unfolding, and then you see, yeah, now we got to this level and we brought in the people and everything's running great. And now we're growing again. Now we're at this level. It becomes easier and easier as we're growing to do that.
Wow.
But I'm
That's
not
great.
a proponent of, like you said, quitting your job now and let's do this other thing. And I'm also not a proponent of we're not gonna, even though we got a plan to go to that 30 million, we're not gonna start spending resources on hiring and trucks and all
Yep.
this other stuff. We're gonna let it happen as we grow into it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Because that is, and there are plenty of people out there. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. I just am on your side on that one, Joseph, where I wouldn't suggest buying 10 trucks because number one, trucks don't drive themselves.
Yeah.
And number two, empty trucks don't make you any money. So, it's
No,
like,
they're a cost.
it is hard. Which one do you do first?
Yeah.
Which again is a whole different discussion. But, from your coaching and from your consulting, it's great to have that plan and then watch those things happen. And then obviously you can decide. I'm assuming another question for you. You decide when, like, if I said I want to go to 10 million and we get to 10 million, if I want to go to 20 million, I can then implement a lot of what we've been talking about. I decide where the ceiling is in my life, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all based, anything I do is based on who I'm serving, their desires, what they want, and things like that. And there's some people, there's some people with risk factors and everything else, Dave. They'll go, you know what? I'm gonna buy two trucks right off the bat and grow into
Yeah.
those, and then we'll buy two. And other people are going, man, I'm gonna lease a truck for a while.
Right.
And so it see, that's what I tell people. I don't know your pathway,
Yeah.
but I'm really good at helping you develop systems of accelerating habit that work, that bring about rapid results in your life and open up free time and all that stuff, and helping you to then achieve that based on what not comfortable,
Sure.
because it's going to be uncomfortable at times, but
Yep.
based on what your risk factor, your desires, everything else.
Yeah. Well, it's safe to say that not much grows outside your comfort zone. So if we live in that comfort zone, there's not a lot of growth that happens. So, we do a lot of training and teaching around the country on comfort zone. And it's interesting because I challenge the audience or the listener right now is to think of when's the last time that you were out of your comfort zone?
Yeah.
When's the last time that you knew you were in the learning zone or the growth zone where you were
Yes.
somewhere where it's like, crap, I don't want to be here right now, but I know I should be here right now, right? So
Yeah.
how does that kind of play into your methods that you work
Well, let
with?
me ask you a question. That's a great point there, Dave. I'm glad you brought that up because what sets your comfort zone? What
Right?
determines
Yeah.
your comfort zone for each of us?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
your
It's
programming.
different for each person, right?
It's your programming.
Yeah.
So that
I'm
programming, when
programmed to, yeah, because I'm programmed. My comfort zone is not hang gliding. Your comfort zone is hang gliding. You probably
now it
don't
is,
even
it wasn't
get
before I did it.
right. Exactly. Yeah,
But you know what
exactly.
I'm saying? Like our
Yeah, I do.
programming
Yep.
determines our comfort zone
Yep.
because our programming includes all that stuff that keeps us within that boundaries of there and tries to always guide us to being within that boundary.
Yep.
So when we
Wow.
break out of our comfort zone, that's a courageous act on our part.
Yep.
And what I've been able to do for myself and the hundreds of clients I serve is through the SMT method is be able to help them take some of the fear, take some of the anxiety, and build up some of the successes so that it becomes exciting getting outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, a couple questions as we start to land today. I was curious, we talked about kind of fear as a challenge that people face when they're talking about growth or talking about like, a resistance to the SMT method. What are some other challenges that you see people face when they're looking at growing their business? Is there anything that kind of rises to the top more often than not in what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, there's fear is definitely a huge part of it and stuff. But even like when I resigned from corporate America as a vice president of sales and things like that to step out and do what the works I do today, I lost half of my acquaintances because they were all in corporate America and they're
Yeah.
following that same, comfort zone and programming in their life and how they're doing. They thought I was ridiculous to walk away from the salary and things like that I walked away from, but the
Yep.
passion was stronger than what those things were, and
Yep.
within a short period of time I'd recover that doing this. So there's things like that, our support systems and stuff. There's almost where that negative influence coming from people. When I work with my clients and we build up that want to the highest level and stuff, I tell them, be careful who you share it with. Because some people are going to give you assistance because of their comfort zones and their fears
Yeah.
of why you shouldn't do that or why it'll never work or why this or why that's another big part of it.
Sure. Wow. Well, and again, for someone listening, whatever your challenge is, you have to kind of work through it because it's easy to say, I could never do that, or lack the self-confidence, or, our team that would never work. I mean, my circumstances would never allow me to work on my own. There's so many things that are going to come at you when you start to have these thoughts. So I'm just sharing that with you so you identify it. It's not necessarily real. I mean, if you have ever heard that expression that fear stands for false expectations appearing real, FEAR, there's a lot of things that are you're going to come across that aren't really even accurate, And so that's, but again, your brain is like, whoa, don't jump off that. I mean, that your brain must have been telling you the first time you did your hang gliding. What are you, nuts? I mean, you're standing on a safe place. Why would you jump off and risk your life? And then it starts probably laying out all these weird things. There's just times you just have to jump and, deal with that as they come. So I love that piece
And then
that,
like a
that we've
lot
been
of other
talking about.
things, Dave,
Yeah,
you have 3 steps and you're off the ramp and in the air. And that fear is built up, and I could describe it. I won't, but like the heart beating in your throat and everything else, and
sure.
everything in your head going, "Don't do it, don't do it." And at the moment your feet leave the ground,
Yeah.
it's like so amazing. And it's like that
Wow.
with all of with the majority
Yeah,
of our other fears too. That
sure.
our level of greatness is just on the other side of our fears, which is the
That's great.
programming.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. So, I'm just curious, what would your tip of the day be, Joseph, for somebody listening? Maybe
Yeah,
it's
I want
something
to
that we
build off of.
covered. Yeah,
I
maybe it's
want
something we covered. Maybe it's something we didn't. So, what would Joseph's tip of the day be today?
Yeah, Dave, I think it would build off of what I said earlier. Is first we start expanding our mind, our thinking, and then that will lead to expanded results and our desires and all that stuff. So if you really just take some time and define, what do I want? What do I really want to, forget about, and when I do this, Dave, I look out a few years, because if we look out 6 months or a year, we're so attached to our situation, circumstances and stuff, it's hard to see. If we look out a few years, we can have a whole different life in a few years, so looking out there, you get a broader perspective of it. Not that it needs to take 3 years, but then start asking yourself, if it wasn't impossible, how would it feel to live that life with that desire fulfilled?
Wow. And it
That
all
will
starts
open
with
up imagination and start rolling some things around in their ideas and building that passion for that, desire for that.
Love it. And it starts expanding your mind. The cool part is you can do that where you're at right now. It doesn't take a huge amount of work. It just takes you intentionality of sitting, thinking, clarify what you want, expand your mind, what could be. I mean, it just, I don't know. To me, those are fun exercises to do. Those are enjoyable exercises rather than going to the dentist and stuff like that. It's like fun. And so I'm hoping that out of today, people were able to at least take a little respite from where they were and kind of think about potential of what could be. And if for the people that are at that spot that might have a question, might want to know what the next steps are, Joseph, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
You know what? I'm just going to give you my phone number. Anybody can reach out to me. It's 864-614-3333. And awesome. With a last name like Drollshagen, you have to get a phone number that's a little easier with the 3333. But yeah, and anybody
say
can
the phone number again for people one more time, Joseph.
864-614-3333. And awesome. I invite anybody, Dave, even if somebody thinks this is BS and stuff, call me. If nothing else, I can help expand, hopefully help expand and help people get into opening up more of that in their lifetime.
Yeah. And what do you have to lose? I mean, for somebody that wants to expand your mind, what do you possibly have to lose? If you'd spend, 30 minutes with Joseph and you realize that that's not for you or that doesn't make sense, I mean, at least you did it. It's like taking a cooking class and never using the, the information. It's okay. So you invested some time to improve yourself. Worst case, nothing happens. Best case is it changes your life. And all of a sudden you get that rapid, unrealistic growth and you get to increase your time freedom. And so to me, that's worth taking that risk. So I sure hope for people listening that are sitting there on the edge that they'll jump on that call or go to his website. I'm going to say it right. JosephDrollshagen.com, DROLSHAGEN.com, Joseph, and then the last name.com.
It's actually Joseph A. Drollshagen.
Uh-oh, look at that. I got the A in there. You're right. Thanks for doing that. Was there another Joseph that took your site or you needed that A in there? What's up with that?
I do have a son with a different middle name, but that's a whole nother thing. But no, I don't know why I did it that way. It made sense then. It's like the IMGT awesome. Made sense.
JosephADrollshagen.com or jump on LinkedIn or give them a call. But again, we encourage everybody each week to do something with what you heard rather than jump into your next podcast because it's super easy. Click the next one. We appreciate and love that you were here with us. I just want to encourage you to sit, even if it's for 3 minutes afterwards, just to expand your mind and see if there's something in there that starts to all of a sudden take root, and then talk to Joseph, do something other than just go back into your next thing. Thank you so much, Joseph, for hanging out with us. Can't wait to learn more about this. And I have to say, if I ever have the inkling to hang glide, would you help me?
Absolutely, I would. Oh, yeah.
First step's the biggest, though, right?
Well, it is, because the first step you would do is go up on a tandem. And
that would be a blast. That would be so much fun. Yeah. Awesome. Are you approved to do that?
No, but I would set you up with somebody who is.
Cool. Yeah, right. Hey, I've never done this tandem thing before. Let's give it a shot.
Come on out, let's give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen?
I just have a couple cocktails first just to take that liquid courage in there. So awesome. Well, thanks, Joseph. Again, appreciate all your time and can't wait to keep learning from you.
A great conversation, Dave. Pleasure to meet you and get to spend this time with you. And let me, if I could say one last thing really quick.
Sure,
That
absolutely.
phone call, I gave out my phone number. It's not a sales pitch. It's not to talk to you about coaching. It's not that there's a whole process for that. It's really, it's not to educate people on the whole mindset and all that stuff and the intricacies and everything. It's really just to help people make some forward momentum in their life.
Excellent. If you don't do that, then it's not on us. We did our job today. We exposed you to something that maybe is new for you. Maybe it's outside your comfort zone. That's okay. Just remember that growth doesn't really happen in your comfort zone. And so hopefully you'll reach out to Joseph and can't wait again to learn about more people that call. So thanks again for all your time.